WDWNT, the worldwide leader in Disney Parks news. This is ParksCenter. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of ParksCenter. Joining me on tonight's show, we have Jill.
Hello.
Nathan.
Greetings from the Sunshine State.
Rob.
Jumbo, everyone.
And Tyler.
Sivaco!
I swear we'll have feedback at some point. You're doing a great job in his stead, though, I'll say that.
Until
All
then,
right.
I'm
Orlando
wearing
right now.
more shorts.
All right, let's kick things off with our first topic of the night, and woo boy, this was a huge story on the website this week. Oh my goodness. Disneyland had a huge ticket price increase. The one-day tickets jumped a little over 10%, but some of these annual passes went up 23% in price. Here's your full breakdown here. A one-day value pass was $97. It's now $104. And that like this whole chart just kind of outlines all the different options they had. The 5-day park hopper went from $370 to $395. Max pass went up from $10 a day to $15 a day. Annual pass holders now cost an additional $25 a year to add it. And for the annual passes themselves, Select only went up $30, but Premier went up from $15.79 to $19.49. Plus tax, that's over $2,000, which is a new record high in Disney ticket prices. This is a bit much. I know that Disneyland's trying to deal with the fact that they've got a bunch of locals who buy annual passes and show up all the time, but this is just kind of an absurd price point, at least in my opinion. Does anybody has anybody bought an annual pass for Disneyland before, or are we just all too Florida-y to have done that?
I'm too Florida-y, but that's just me. Disneyland's a wonderful park, and I have no issue with it. But they have different concerns than Florida has, and they have had from day one because of being in Anaheim. And as much as I think it seems crazy, I wonder how crazy it actually is when you look behind the curtain a little bit and you see sort of the price points and the attendance issues. Bob Iger talked about in this interview that we'll probably talk about later. I know we'll talk about later. He talks about, how he's cognizant of attendance overcrowding and things of that nature. So this is something that's on their mind. I don't really have a problem with it. I'm not surprised. I think this is exactly what we kind of expected. And it is a huge land trying to do something completely new. So I don't know. I waffle on this one.
I would say... Go ahead, Jill.
I was just going to say, it's definitely clear that the way the prices are tiered to impact the annual pass holders more, and especially the annual pass holders that have fewer blackout dates, it's clear that that's the issue. It seems like they're trying to keep pass holders from coming back quite as much to manage capacity better. The thing I think is weird is the huge price hike on the Premier Pass. I would love to see usage data on Premier Pass. I know that's never going to happen, but I would love to see why are they penalizing those folks the most when I would have to think that their attendance in Disneyland is nowhere near the Signature or Signature Plus folks who had a huge price hike, but not that high.
What surprises me is the Max Pass. That's fairly new, and the idea of paying for a pass, and I know it's only $5, but that's a lot. If you're there for 3 or 4 days and you have 4 or 5 people in your party, the idea of paying an extra $5 for that one, I mean, that's a huge hike too. I agree with you about the Premier Pass and how expensive that is and rewarding those people, but just that little one, I just think it is crazy. But in general, I think, to Nathan's point, the idea of the overcrowding in this park, I still have no concept of how they're going to open their doors to Star Wars Land with as crowded as that park is already. It seems like a nightmare waiting to happen, and I can't wait to have a front row seat.
Yeah, you're entirely right about that. This is all probably based around Star Wars Land issues they're projecting. moving forward to issues that Disney wasn't really projecting for, I guess. Certainly I wasn't. DVC has had even more restrictions put on its resales. So, in case you're not aware, DVC is in fact a timeshare, which means
vacation experience.
Yeah, it means that you can sell it after you've bought it. Disney is not a particularly big fan of this because when you sell it, they don't get a cut of that unless they kind of interrupt and buy it out from under you. Disney does have the right of first refusal on your sale, so if Disney wants to, they can buy what you're about to sell from you rather than letting you sell it to someone else. Over the years, DVC has been changing things a little bit internally to try and make buying resale less and less appealing by removing benefits, restricting, like, you can't buy the discounted annual passes if you bought your DVC resale. You can't access a lot of the lounges, things like that. But beginning January 19th, they are instituting 2 rules for resales that were not there previously. First off, anybody who purchases a resale contract for one of the 14 original DVC resorts will be limited to staying at only those resorts. So that means right now with DVC, you can take your points, you can use them anywhere. But if after January 19th, those points will be locked down to being only able to be used at the 14 original DVC resorts. No new resorts will accept those points. The slightly more restrictive and scary thing about this, though, is that once sales for Riviera begin, people who purchased a contract for the resort on the resale market will be limited to staying only at that resort. So that means that if you buy into Riviera and then decide to sell that again later, whoever buys those points from you can only use those points at Riviera. They have no flexibility in where they stay at all. I think this is a little absurd, if you can't tell from my tone.
You know what? I just bought into DVC a few years ago, and this is actually one of my lesser problems with DVC because as a person who bought from Disney, I bought with the understanding that they were going to have things for me as a person buying from them that they weren't going to have for other people. The only thing that is really going to bother me is if for some reason I have to sell my points, they have now lost a lot of value in the aftermarket. So as long as I'm still holding on to them, I still get to go to the DVC club at Epcot. I still get to go to the Moonlight Magic. I still get to get the discounts on the annual passes. But if I'm going to have to, if something, God forbid, happens, and I have to sell the points, now they've got a lot less value on the open market than they used to. So as long as I'm holding on to them, I'm happy.
Yeah. And that is kind of an important point to emphasize here, that if you are a current DVC owner, regardless of how you got your points, nothing has changed for you and nothing will change for you. This is all about if you are going to buy into DVC in the secondhand market after January 19th. So. Yeah,
and it's, at the same time, though, like I said, this is like one of my lesser problems with it, but I hope that that along the way they're going to realize that they need to do more for DVC members because of how loyal the people are who are DVC members and how much we love the company, how much money we give them all the time. So I really hope that as they're doing the negatives here, they do some positives.
For sure. Moving on to really the transitions tonight just aren't that great, unfortunately.
We got too many diverse topics.
Yeah. It's like Disney's been all over the board in the past couple weeks. We're playing a little bit of catch up on news. That's the problem.
And now they're all over the map.
Yay! There it is. Disney has not once but twice now bought a bunch of new land. So back on December 17th, we published this story about Disney purchasing the BK Ranch, which is just southeast of Celebration. It was zoned for 3,000 homes and 378,000 square feet of commercial and office space. You can see on the grid right there where this is. We then released a follow-up to this, essentially, on January 9th, of Disney originally bought that much land. Now they bought that much land. Like, this this seems to just keep growing. For the record, Disney did make 2 separate purchases here. It's not like we missed something the first time, but they it seems strange that they've gone and bought 2 rather large pieces of land right next to each other, right near Celebration, one right after the other.
It definitely is strange. But
I
I
don't
just
think
want to
it's
say
strange at
really
all.
quick that BK Ranch is my favorite flavor of Burger King dipping sauce.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it reminds me a lot of when they were purchasing the land initially for Florida, and they'd be buying it in like various chunks using different names. And in this case, it's 2 separate transactions. Nathan?
Hmm. I just don't think it's that. I don't think it's that crazy. As you said, they've done this kind of stuff before. But beyond that, the idea of Celebration completely was, well, we don't want all of the craziness of Orlando seeking or sneaking into what we're doing here. And of course, Celebration, because it was sort of a failure on Disney's part, was became its own town by itself. But that solved the problem anyway, kind of. This, though, I think is really connected to Sunrail. So there's that new line coming in, and it's right there. And there's no doubt in my mind that they understand the importance of Sunrail. They understand what the potential could be, and they know that, look, if people are going to get off of Sunrail, we need to be right there to pick them up. And this is the way we're going to do it. Because if we don't pick them up, Universal will, or somebody else will, or whatever. So this is their way of sort of cornering that area. And it also allows Sunrail the opportunity to say, okay, we are going to put a stop here. Let's confirm that. Let's make sure that happens, because they own the land, and Disney's being kind of like rolling out the red carpet for that. I think this is 100% about Sunrail.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Something
not
to
about
note
a
that.
park.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's definitely not about a park. Like,
No.
we say blessing of size in sort of like the little caption we got there on the heads-up display. Like, people don't realize that a lot of the land within Walt Disney World, or like the resort area itself, is not even like land they could really build on. Like land surveying, a lot of it is still swampland, and even then, like in the case of upcoming Odyssey segue, that's like a sinkhole in the ground where they really just can't build anything, which is why Odyssey is there. So it's not like a lot of the land within the resort can be built upon. So that's why I'm like, oh yeah, build like buying new land off site. That kind of makes sense. But what Nathan was saying about the rail, that's actually like a really good point.
It is. Speaking of that Odyssey Pavilion, let's go right into that. The Odyssey Pavilion just went under a rather large remodel. I wasn't expecting this. I don't think anybody else really was expecting this. But you can, from the outside, it looks pretty much the same. But the interior, it's flat now. Rob, you were there for this, right? You could probably talk a bit more about what we're looking at, because you actually saw this in person.
Yeah, it was really funny. The day that we were there, I was following our chat, and somebody was there taking pictures of it, and I was like saying to my family, "Well, I know where we're going today. We got to go check this thing out." I used to love the Odyssey restaurant back in early Epcot. When I was a cast member there was like a cast dining hall on the back of it, and we used to be able to get cheap hot dogs and hamburgers and fries. And we always used to walk by it or through it when we were there. So, I mean, I have I've always had sadness in the fact that it's never really been open, and they've started doing it more for the festivals now and that kind of stuff. So we went over there, and it's definitely a huge remodel. The bathrooms are amazing for people who are fans of Disney bathrooms. I mean, that is a thing. I'm sure people, talk about the Tangled bathrooms and what's your favorite and what's your least favorite.
Oh, if you're a fan of this podcast, you must like bathrooms.
Yeah, exactly. least favorite has got to be maybe Lady and the Tramp or the one across from Ohana. But the one, but this is, I mean, the whole place is really nice, and the idea that they've freshened up the inside. The funny thing was, we were there on New Year's Eve, and they had just these tables, as you see. I mean, it wasn't any different than this. It was wide open.
Oh, here we go.
Look,
here's those bathrooms.
There you go. I'm telling you, top notch. It has the trifecta. I always say, like, if it's got the no-hand water, the dryers, and the soaps, you don't have to touch anything. It's great.
Combine that with the Settler Catan tiling on the wall there, and there you go.
Yeah. So, but in the pictures where they just show the tables, like when we went in there on New Year's Eve, I was thinking they probably have this set up this way because they don't want people to come in and just sit. The funny part was, and I wish I could show you some of the pictures I took when I was in there, is people, and you kind of see that in some of these, people just decided to lay down and plug into the wall and recharge their phones, and it looked like the airport when people are waiting, huddled up by the walls trying to charge their phones. But there was literally people in there taking naps. There was a guy, people were there for the fireworks, so they brought their blankets. They were laying down on blankets, and it almost looked like Epcot Snap Shop. But
there you
the
go.
whole place,
That's your picture.
yeah. See there. Look at you. All right. Yeah.
I mean, leave it to World Showcase to finally have a refugee camp, right?
Oh my gosh.
Ooh. Thank you, Nathan. Good night.
Good night, everybody. This is our last episode.
But I mean, it's really cool. I did see somebody say in the chat that it probably is only going to be open for festivals. But isn't that all Epcot is one long festival all year long?
Yeah.
They're going to move everything from the festival center here. I'm happy. Leave Wonders of Life alone.
That's the big question.
Yeah,
and we
is
should
this now set up for Festival Center full time? Is that what's going to happen? And Wonders of Life Pavilion will not be Festival Center anymore.
Well, and they have
so much.
Good.
I was going to say that the fact that there's so much open space in there means it's very easy to set up merchandise kiosks and whatever else they want to do. So there's maybe that's why there are no installed seating, is so that they have the flexibility of adapting that space to whatever they need for the Festival Center.
Yeah.
Well, and it's clear that if you look at the banisters on the top there, that's for Festival of the Arts. It's the same as last year's setup. In fact, they might not have changed that. It was the same way last year. How they're going to do hosting things, they might bring in a raised stage that they can take away or something, because that was a great place to have a little intimate, talk with an Imagineer or artist or whatever. And I can't see it in my head anymore, but we'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of conversations with people, I won't quite call him an Imagineer. Bob Iger said words this week.
Let's just leave it at that. He just said words. There you go. Next time.
He said words or whatever.
Social media exploded.
Yeah. So let's kind of go over a little bit of what happened here. So an interview published January 4th with Barron's. Bob Iger provided a rather interesting quote. So he's talking here about IPs in the parks and things like that. Avatar is a good example. Cars Land, we're building a Frozen Land in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Paris. The interest among the potential audience is higher. It's not like I'm going to ride some nondescript coaster somewhere that maybe is themed like India or whatever. No, you're going to Arendelle and you're going to experience Frozen with Anna and Elsa, and so on and so on. So the nondescript coaster themed like India or whatever. It seemed like a bit of a shot at Expedition Everest. He proceeded to get on Twitter later and clarify, for the record, I love Expedition Everest and the whole land around it, and I never suggested otherwise. It is distinct, not nondescript, as its popularity suggests. And then Barron's went back and edited the quote in their story so that now that it reads, it's not like I'm going to ride some nondescript coaster somewhere, removing out taking out the India remark entirely. This something here feels like backpedaling.
May I? First off, for the record, Twitter's not a record. No one cares. Secondly, we need to get rid of Twitter. Everything would be so much better without it.
The world would be a better place.
You mean to tell me that we're Twitter-pated?
Everything ever.
No, Ben.
Sure.
No one is telling you that. Boo.
Third, that is such bad journalism practice. Fourth, I could count up to 500 on this. There's just so much about it. Sorry, does anyone else want to talk about this?
Yeah, let me talk about an alternate take that I have. That is, I find myself somewhat slightly defending Iger and to the detriment of my Twitter life.
Your Twitter's been
what I
funny
think.
to read as well.
Thanks. Here's what I think. I think that so we've had rumor that India is coming as a pavilion and showcase, and there's a Jungle Book ride that's going to be a part of that.
Oh.
If you look at his sentence structure, he's talking about Arendelle. He's talking about Frozen. I think he's got Epcot on the brain while he's saying that sentence. I think he's been in meetings for India, and I think he's talking about India. I really don't think he's talking about Expedition Everest. It doesn't make any sense. He's not talking about Animal Kingdom in any of that.
Pandora.
Besides that one, I guess Pandora. Correct. I'm sorry. But I just think if you're thinking through a thought process, I just think that his mind is on things coming up, meetings that he's had, and having a nondescript, coaster or whatever about India, that can be something that's related. I could be completely wrong. It's still not right that Barron's changed the quote.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also sort of goofy that, he has this casual attitude because he treats the parks like an asset, which it is in his position. And for us, I'm literally making a freaking show about it. So it matters to us. And because of that dissonance really gets under the gills of a lot of people. And I understand that. But I also try to understand that, for him, it's not the same thing. So that's my weird defense of Bob Iger, that I still think it's weird, but maybe, just maybe, it's a little blown out of proportion. Just a little.
So I get what you're saying, Nathan, and that could entirely be the case that was what he was referring to. But to me, his statement says Bob Iger obviously thinks that IP-based attractions are far superior to non-IP-based attractions, even if he wasn't intentionally dissing Everest, no matter what.
Right.
It's telling me
Yes.
I don't want Imagineers to come up with anything new. I want to build everything based on IPs from here on out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
regardless of his intention or anything else, that is clearly what he was communicating. And I think even if people are misinterpreting or whatever, that is more than enough for the Disney blogosphere, Twitter, whatever, to freak out about, because that's so antithetical to what we want to see happening in the parks. We want those original amazing attractions like Pirates and Mansion. We don't want more, let's cram Frozen into something. God, if this is actually the interpretation is I'm going to retheme Everest as a Frozen ride, I am going to lose my mind.
No.
Lose my
I'm
mind.
not worried about that.
Oh,
Just
worry
want to
about
make
that.
that
you're gonna
that
place
better
the.
not.
You should have doubled the time on this one. I think that.
Keep going.
No, I just think that. Okay, I think this, we as a fan group want a certain thing. I don't always agree. I understand that IP is what's going to be there, and I literally have no problem with it, because I get that that's on purpose. Can they be creative with IPs? Yes, I think they can absolutely be creative with IPs. Would I like an original thing? Sure. Mystic Manor seems to be the prettiest, most gorgeous ride Disney's made in years. I'm all for it, but I just, from the business's perspective, from their perspective, from Bob Iger's perspective, I get it. I understand. It's a sure thing when you're putting so much money into this. Now, we're not, and just the nature of how the parks are now, we're not going to get as many IP properties. You don't go into an arms race with Universal, who's throwing out Nintendo and things like that, and go, here's a nondescript thing about something, whatever. You can't. It's not possible in this business culture. And as much as I prefer being creative and understanding that, but when the bottom line is people need to get paid, I also get that this is a new era that we didn't have before. Disney was the only park that was doing any of this stuff, and that allowed them the opportunity to get original and creative. And now, Universal is making it, as I said, an arms race. And because of that, they can't go tit for tat with things people don't already know. I don't like that. I'm just saying that is the reality of what currently is the economy of theme park attractions.
And you know what? I'd like to add on real quick, though, that basically what Bob Iger has done in his legacy of the Disney company is to buy IP. And so if you think about it that way, he's basically backing his own horse here, saying, hey, look, this is a great idea. This is why I bought Star Wars. This is why I merged with Pixar. This is why I bought Marvel. This is, these are the things that I've brought to you as part of his legacy. And so I think that, he's definitely got to get defensive when people, especially like the, me's of the world, start whining about things that are, that there's no original concepts idea anymore. And, isn't it great back in the day when they would do Haunted Mansion and Small World and Jungle Cruise and all these non-IP things? I agree with you 100%, Nathan. Like, if they're going to compete with the Universals and the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and all that kind of stuff, I mean, they've got to play big, and they do with Star Wars, and that's awesome. But I think that he's definitely defending his choices to get into the IP game, and again with 21st Century Fox, like, a month away. I mean, he's definitely got to have that stance, especially when he's talking to the media.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jill,
I would just say, just quick, the whole I question the argument that they've got to compete with Universal, because Universal has always been nothing but IPs, and they did just fine competing with Universal up until Harry Potter. So I don't know that I buy that argument, because I think things like Pirates and Mansion are what helped them always be one step ahead of Universal all of this time. And as soon as people who were in Disney trying to make original attractions, like in Beastly Kingdom, as soon as that wasn't happening, guess who snapped them up? Universal. So Universal knows that the people know how to do that stuff are a valuable asset. And it seems to me that Bob Iger is turning his back on what has been a foundational element of what has made the Disney parks so amazing all this time.
Yeah. You make a really solid point there. I'm glad we spent the time on this, but now we're going to just lightning round the next couple of topics here. Really quickly, Slinky Dog Dash, the tail's gone. Thing bad. There is no more tail on this coaster. It was neat, but it was a safety hazard, so they took it out. They've also started covering up some of the springs, because those were also starting to deteriorate. Thing
Happy
bad,
6-month
no
anniversary
like
of
thing.
Slinky Dog Dash. This is 6 months.
Yeah,
6
really.
months.
Now, see, this is why I've said this before about Star Wars Land. I don't want to be stuck in Star Wars Land in the beginning when everyone's there. I'd like to wait a little while and then go and enjoy it. But at the same time, I want to get there early before all this kind of stuff starts happening to it and they start taking things away from it. Because that's really happening with Toy Story Land. Like, Nathan, to your point, 6 months. I mean, we're already losing the plastic fences and the just so many different little things that we hear about, that it's a little upsetting to see. And I look at like the pin that I have that I got from when I was first there, and you can see his tail coming off of the end of the roller coaster. I mean, are they ever going to put it back? Are they going to look for a solution? I would doubt it. It just looks like he's been amputated on the back, and he's like little cap on the back of his butt. I mean, I'd hope they would fix that, but that's kind of sad. And it again makes me think I better be fighting crowds day one at Star Wars Land if I want to see it the way it was intended to be.
Yeah.
Counterpoint would be Pandora. I think Pandora today is about 95% of it was the way it was on opening day. People who really love the nighttime thing would probably scream at me about that, because clearly the floors especially have been worn down with traffic. But I think that clearly this Toy Story was a joke to start with, and it was thrown quick, and I think that's why it looks the way it does currently. That's why it has the problems it has now. And Star Wars, why it's having problems is because everybody is literally like just like an acre that way or less, like working on Star Wars. Like no one's looking at Toy Story right now, because they're like working as fast as they can to get this much more important thing done.
All right, I hate to cut this off, but we're running over time here, and I do want to briefly touch on some of the new stuff that we've got coming for you folks, because we don't have enough time to plug it all the way I wanted to at this point. But we've got a bunch of things coming especially from people on this panel, like Nathan. You want to talk a little bit about Dreamfinders real quick?
Sure. So Dreamfinders is the new podcast from WDWNT, where I interview guests about the creative culture of Disney theme parks. The first episode's already up. You can get it on any of your podcatchers, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any of them. And I mentioned that because the first episode's Bruce Broughton, Emmy Award winner, and did most of the music for Epcot. And we have a lot of great guests coming up. Coming up next week, I'll go ahead and give a little hint for those who are watching, is Rob Plays from YouTube. He's really good. It's a great interview. And then we have a lot of other people coming up that I'm really excited about. So we're doing it every other Tuesday. for this year, and then hopefully I'm getting a lot of good names and good ideas. So hopefully we'll continue past that as well. But
Nice.
Dreamfinders, you can find it right now in iTunes.
Tyler, how about Ride Rehab? Is that coming back?
Yeah, we've entered season 2 of Ride Rehab
Yay!
because this is actually our second year doing the podcast, which is really fun. Where our first few episodes are going to be about Universal Studios and how that compares to Disney. And I know that we were like, you shouldn't compare two completely different parks, but we're going to talk about that. And then we're also covering the next episode after that's going to be the next episode's going to be Animal Kingdom, because there's so much to talk about there.
Oh, nice.
And we're already lining up a few new guests, and we got like enamel pins and stuff being made of some of our joke rides, like barreling over Canada. So come to stage 89. And yeah, it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, just briefly on that topic, Stage 89 is in fact coming up. Keep an eye on stage89.com for schedule details that will hopefully be posted in the very near future. Possibly with some of those details coming out tomorrow night during the return of WDW News Tonight. That show is coming back. It is going to be streamed on YouTube live for you folks to watch. It is going to be a grand time. It's going to have everything that y'all loved about the radio show version of this, but with much higher production values. I've seen some of the stuff we've got going on with the show, and I think it looks great. I am really excited for what's coming. We've got a game show tomorrow night. We're doing Tony's Town Squares, which we're doing Hollywood Squares, but it's Tony's, and you will love this set. Please check that out tomorrow night. And also coming out daily now on YouTube is WDW News Today, which is a daily news brief with Tom. What was that, Nathan?
It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Thank you for that. I'm sorry. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. WDW News Today, which is a news brief with Tom, just giving you the stories and doing a great job covering that. Again, you can find that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WDWNT, both for that and News Tonight. You can also find this show on there, youtube.com/WDWNT. If you head over there, you can subscribe to us, get notifications whenever we post new videos of all kinds. Click that little bell to get the notification sent straight to your phone and make sure you don't miss a video. If you would like this show in podcast form, you can find us in the podcatcher of your choice as well. Just search for ParksCenter there, and you should be able to find us relatively quickly. Thank you, folks, for checking us out tonight. There is no post show tonight. We're all busy getting prepped for tomorrow's News Tonight premiere. But we will see you all next week and have a post show then for you all, I promise. So with that, that's going to do it for this week, and we will see you next week.
Bye, folks.